The gavel was halfway to the bench when Raymond Torres heard himself speak.
I will defend him.
His voice cut through the chaos of Courtroom 9B in Chicago's Cook County Criminal Courts building. Every head turned toward the back of the room, where Raymond stood, his weathered black hands still gripping the handle of his industrial mop. Water dripped from the bucket beside him onto the polished floor he'd cleaned 1,000 times. Judge Patricia Brennan froze, her expression shifting from irritation to confusion. At the defense table, Connor Blake, the 38-year-old billionaire whose face had been plastered across every news outlet for 3 months, looked up with hollow eyes. The man accused of murdering his business partner over $40 million sat completely alone. No attorneys, no support team, just empty chairs and the weight of a nation watching his destruction. "Excuse me?" Judge Brennan's voice carried the edge of someone whose patience had already been exhausted.
Raymond set down his mop carefully, deliberately. His heart hammered against his ribs, but his hands remained steady as he walked down the center aisle. The maintenance uniform, navy work pants, and a light blue shirt with facilities embroidered on the pocket stood in stark contrast to the $1,000 suits filling the gallery.
Behind him, someone laughed, a short, derisive sound that rippled through the spectators like wildfire. "Your Honor," Raymond said, reaching the barrier separating the gallery from the well of the court, "I would like to represent Mr. Blake." The lead prosecutor, Vincent Kellerman, rose smoothly from his seat, tall, silver-haired, and radiating the confidence of a man who'd never lost a case this high profile. "Your Honor, this is absurd. The janitor wants to play lawyer." The courtroom erupted in whispers and poorly concealed snickers. Raymond felt the familiar burn of shame creeping up his neck, the same heat he'd felt for 25 years every time someone looked through him instead of at him. But he'd expected this. He reached into his wallet with careful precision and produced a card, worn at the edges but still valid. "I'm not playing, Mr. Kellerman. I was a member of the Illinois Bar for 12 years before circumstances changed." He handed the card to the bailiff, who carried it to Judge Brennan. "My license was reinstated 8 years ago. I've maintained my continuing education requirements. Everything is in order." Judge Brennan studied the card, her eyebrows rising incrementally. Raymond Torres, attorney at law. She looked up at him with undisguised skepticism. "Mr. Torres, while your credentials appear technically valid, you haven't practiced in, 2.5 decades?" "25 years, Your Honor." Raymond's voice remained steady, despite the whispers growing louder behind him. "And with respect, this man deserves representation. The Constitution is clear on that point." "The Constitution also assumes competent counsel," Kellerman interjected, his tone dripping with condescension, "not someone who spent the last quarter-century mopping floors." Before we go any further, Raymond thought as he felt every eye in the courtroom measuring him, judging him, dismissing him, there's something you should know about moments like these. They're the ones that reveal who we really are when everything is stripped away. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your world right now, because this story, this fight, is happening everywhere, all the time. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications, because tomorrow's chapter is one you won't want to miss. The truth has a way of surfacing when you least expect it. Judge Brennan turned her attention to Connor Blake. "Mr. Blake, do you wish to have Mr. Torres represent you in this matter?" Every person in that courtroom knew what hung in the balance. Connor Blake could afford the finest legal minds in the country. He'd already hired them, the powerhouse firm of Whitmore and Associates, billing $7,000 per hour. Until this morning, when all 6 of them simply vanished. No explanation, no phone calls, nothing. Connor stood slowly. His expensive suit hung differently now, like he'd lost weight he couldn't afford to lose. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. But when he looked at Raymond, something shifted in his expression. "Yes, Your Honor," Connor said, his voice rough from days of barely speaking. "I accept Mr. Torres as my attorney." The judge's mouth tightened into a thin line. "Very well. Mr. Torres, you have 15 minutes to confer with your client before we proceed. And I'll warn you now, I will hold you to the same standards as any other attorney in my courtroom. The fact that you clean these halls doesn't earn you special consideration." Raymond heard the subtext clearly. The fact that you're black and poor won't earn you leniency. I wouldn't want it any other way, Your Honor.
As Raymond moved toward the defense table, a security guard stepped into his path, young, white, with the kind of casual authority that came from never being questioned. "Sir, only attorneys are allowed beyond this point." Raymond displayed his bar card again, the one Judge Brennan had just examined. "I am an attorney." The guard looked past Raymond to the judge, who nodded with visible reluctance. He stepped aside slowly, his hand resting on his belt in a way that made Raymond's stomach tighten with old, familiar fear. When Raymond finally sat beside Connor Blake at the defense table, he leaned in close, keeping his voice low. "Something isn't right about any of this," Raymond whispered. "Your lawyers didn't just abandon you. This feels orchestrated." Connor's eyes widened slightly. "What makes you say that?" Raymond glanced at the prosecution table, where Vincent Kellerman sat conferring with his team, all of them radiating the calm satisfaction of people who'd already won. "Because I've seen this before," Raymond said quietly. "A long time ago, they did the same thing to me." The holding room where Raymond and Connor met during the recess was barely larger than a closet. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows across the scarred metal table between them. A guard stood outside the door, visible through the small window, watching their every move. Connor sat with his hands folded, studying Raymond with an expression somewhere between desperation and doubt. "No offense, but why would you help me? You don't even know me." Raymond set down his worn briefcase, retrieved from his locker in the maintenance office, dusty from years of disuse. "Because everyone deserves a defense, Mr. Blake, even billionaires." He paused, choosing his next words carefully. "And because I recognize the pattern. This isn't just about you being guilty or innocent. Someone wants you destroyed completely." "The prosecution has DNA evidence, financial records showing I transferred $40 million to an offshore account, and 3 witnesses who say they heard me threaten Tyler." Connor's voice cracked slightly on his partner's name. "Tyler Rothman, my best friend since college. They're saying I killed him over money." Raymond pulled out a legal pad, his pen poised. "Tell me about your lawyers, Whitmore and Associates. When did they stop returning your calls?" "This morning, I tried calling the lead attorney, Gerald Whitmore, at 6 a.m. Voicemail. I called the firm. The receptionist said they'd all taken a sudden leave of absence for personal reasons." Connor's hands trembled slightly. "All 6 of them, at the same time, right before my trial." "That's not a coincidence." Raymond made notes in the margins of his pad, muscle memory from his old career returning, like he'd never stopped. "I need access to all your case files, everything they prepared, every piece of discovery, every communication." Connor pulled out his phone, fingers moving quickly. "I have copies of most of it. Tyler always said I was paranoid about backups." His voice caught again. Guess he was right. As files began transferring to Raymond's borrowed laptop, courtesy of the courthouse's public defender's office, Raymond studied Connor's face. Grief, exhaustion, and something else. Fear, yes, but also confusion. The look of a man who couldn't understand how his world had collapsed so completely. The door opened without warning. A court officer Raymond didn't recognize stepped in. Older, white, with cold eyes that swept over Raymond dismissively before landing on Connor. "Mr. Blake, there's been a request to move you to general population pending trial. Judge's orders." Raymond stood immediately. "That's highly irregular for a defendant of Mr. Blake's profile. He's been in protective custody since arrest." The officer's gaze finally settled on Raymond, traveling slowly from his maintenance uniform to his face. "And you are?" "His attorney." The officer's mouth twisted into something that might have been a smile. "Right, the janitor." He turned back to Connor. "Pack your things. Transfer happens in an hour." After he left, Connor went pale. "General population. That's... Raymond, I won't last a day. There are people inside who've been paid to..." "I know." Raymond was already dialing on his phone. It rang 4 times before a familiar voice answered. "Torres, is that really you?" "Hello, Marcus. I need a favor." Marcus Chen had been a law clerk when Raymond was still practicing. Now he worked in the public defender's office, handling overflow cases and prison advocacy. Within 20 minutes, he'd filed an emergency motion blocking the transfer pending a hearing. When Raymond and Connor returned to the courtroom, the atmosphere had shifted. More media packed the gallery now, cameras trained on them from the designated press area. Raymond felt their lenses following him like searchlights.
Judge Brennan entered, and everyone rose. As they sat, Raymond noticed the judge's expression had hardened even further.
"Mr. Torres," she said, her voice carrying across the silent courtroom, "I've received your emergency motion regarding Mr. Blake's custody situation. While I'm surprised by your resourcefulness, I'm denying the motion. The defendant will be transferred as scheduled."
Your Honor, my client's safety— Your client is accused of murder, Mr. Torres. Perhaps if his previous attorneys hadn't abandoned him, we wouldn't be in this situation. She paused meaningfully. One might wonder what they knew that prompted such a dramatic departure. The implication hung in the air like poison. Raymond felt Connor stiffen beside him. Permission to approach, Your Honor? Judge Brennan nodded sharply.
At the bench, with Kellerman joining them, Raymond kept his voice low and controlled. "Your Honor, I have reason to believe Mr. Blake's previous counsel was coerced into withdrawing. I'm requesting a continuance to investigate."
Kellerman laughed softly. Your Honor, this is a delay tactic. Mr. Torres is clearly unprepared to— I have evidence. Raymond slid a document across to the judge. This is a bank record showing a wire transfer of $500,000 to Gerald Whitmore's personal account. It was deposited 3 days ago from an offshore LLC. That same LLC has ties to Meridian Pharmaceuticals and Titan Construction Group, the same companies that would benefit most from Mr. Blake's conviction and the seizure of his assets. Judge Brennan's eyes narrowed as she scanned the document. How did you obtain this? I still have friends in places people forget to look, Your Honor. Janitors hear things, we see things, and sometimes we remember. For the first time, doubt flickered across the judge's face. Kellerman recovered quickly. Your Honor, this is absurd. Even if true, it doesn't change the evidence against Mr. Blake. Perhaps his attorneys withdrew because the case is unwinnable. Or perhaps, Raymond said quietly, they withdrew because someone paid them to. And if the prosecution was aware of this payment and didn't disclose it, we're looking at prosecutorial misconduct. The courtroom had gone silent enough that Raymond could hear the clock on the wall ticking. Judge Brennan looked between the two attorneys, her jaw working. I'm granting a 48-hour continuance, she finally said. Mr. Blake will remain in protective custody pending further investigation into these allegations. Mr. Torres, you'll have 2 days to substantiate these claims, or I'll proceed with trial as scheduled. As they returned to their tables, Raymond caught Kellerman's expression. The prosecutor's confidence had cracked, just slightly. But underneath it, Raymond saw something else. Recognition and worry. That evening, as Raymond left the courthouse through the employee entrance, he found his ancient Toyota Corolla with a note tucked under the wiper blade. Drop the case. This is your only warning. Raymond's hands didn't shake as he unlocked his car. But as he drove through Chicago's streets toward his small apartment in Pilsen, he checked his mirrors more often than usual. His phone rang as he pulled up to his building. An unknown number. Hello? Mr. Torres? A woman's voice, young and frightened. This is Alicia Reeves. I was Gerald Whitmore's paralegal. I think you need to know what really happened. Raymond's grip tightened on the steering wheel. I'm listening. They threatened his family. Said if he didn't withdraw from the case, his daughter would have an accident. Mr. Whitmore, he tried to go to the police, but they told them they'd already bought them too, that no one would believe him. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Mr. Torres, there are people watching his house right now, and I think they're watching me too. Where are you? I shouldn't have called. Just be careful. Mr. Blake didn't kill anyone, but someone very powerful wants everyone to think he did. The line went dead. Raymond sat in his car for a long moment, watching the evening shadows stretch across the street. He thought about walking away, about going back to mopping floors and staying invisible, staying safe. Then he thought about Connor Blake's face in that courtroom, the same desperate, betrayed look Raymond had worn 25 years ago when the system he trusted had destroyed him. He pulled out his phone and dialed. Sophia? It's Dad. I need your help. Have you ever trusted someone to protect you, only to discover they'd been bought? Comment if you've experienced betrayal from people you paid to stand by you. Because what Raymond was about to uncover would prove that loyalty itself had become just another commodity for sale. Connor Blake's penthouse office occupied the top floor of a converted warehouse in Chicago's West Loop. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, but thick curtains were drawn when Raymond arrived the next morning. Security had searched him twice, once at the building entrance, again at the elevator. Now he sat across from Connor in a space that felt more like a fortress than an office. Multiple computer screens lined one wall, all dark. A wall safe stood open, empty.
"They took everything," Connor said, gesturing at the vacant safe. "FBI seized my servers, my prototypes, all my research files. Said it was evidence." He laughed bitterly. "Evidence of what? Innovation?"
Raymond set down his briefcase. Sophia had worked through the night tracing the offshore payment to Whitmore, and what she'd found had kept Raymond awake until dawn. But first, he needed to understand what Connor had created that was worth destroying a man's entire life. "Tell me about EcoConstruct, the real story."
Connor walked to the windows, peering through a gap in the curtains. You ever think about where buildings come from? The concrete, the steel, the lumber? He turned back to Raymond. Every skyscraper, every house, every road, it all comes from mining, logging, smelting. Industries worth trillions. Industries that are killing the planet.
"And you found an alternative." "I found something better than an alternative. I found a revolution." Connor's eyes lit up despite his exhaustion. Bioengineered construction materials. Living matter that grows in weeks, self-assembles into any shape we need, then solidifies into something stronger than steel and completely biodegradable when we're done with it. Raymond leaned forward. "You're talking about growing buildings." "I'm talking about obsoleting every traditional construction material on Earth. No more mining, no more logging, no more carbon-intensive concrete production. Just programmable biological matter that we can cultivate in vats, deploy on site, and watch it build itself." Connor pulled out his phone, showing Raymond a video. On the screen, something that looked like gray coral grew in time-lapse, branching and expanding until it formed a perfect structural beam. Numbers flashed: tensile strength, compression resistance, thermal properties, all superior to conventional materials. "How long until this is market-ready?"
It already is. Tyler and I were 3 weeks from filing the final patents. We had contracts lined up with developers in 15 countries. The first full-scale building was scheduled to break ground in 6 months. Connor's voice went flat. Then Tyler disappeared. Then they found his blood in my car, my DNA under his fingernails, and $40 million missing from our accounts.
Raymond pulled out his legal pad. "Walk me through the night Tyler vanished. Everything you remember." Connor's account was precise, detailed. A normal evening at the office. Tyler leaving around 9, saying he had a meeting with a potential investor. Connor working until midnight, then going home. His security footage showed him arriving at his Lincoln Park townhouse at 12:47 a.m., not leaving until morning. "But the prosecution has footage from a traffic camera showing your car near Navy Pier at 1:30 a.m., Raymond said. "How do you explain that?"
"I can't. That's not possible."
"What about the money? The $40 million? Connor's jaw tightened. "I've been over our accounts 100 times. That money was transferred using my credentials, from my computer, with my authentication. But I didn't do it." He met Raymond's eyes. Someone else did. Someone who had access to everything. Raymond thought about the conspiracy unfolding, the layers of deception. Who knew about your technology? Who had the most to lose? Titan Construction Group is the biggest. They control 30% of the American concrete market. Global Steel Alliance, Weyerhaeuser Lumber. Any of them would be devastated if my technology scales. Connor paused. But the company that scares me most is Meridian Pharmaceuticals. Raymond's pen stopped moving. What does a pharmaceutical company have to do with construction? Meridian doesn't just make drugs anymore. They bought a biotech division 5 years ago. They've been working on something similar to my technology, but they've failed repeatedly. When word got out about my breakthrough, they approached me with a buyout offer. Connor's expression darkened. $20 billion. I turned them down. The room felt suddenly colder. Raymond's mind flashed back 25 years to a different case, a different lifetime. Immigrant workers used as test subjects, evidence that disappeared, witnesses who recanted, and Meridian Pharmaceuticals at the center of it all, destroying anyone who threatened their interests.
Connor, Raymond said carefully, when Meridian approached you, who handled the negotiations?
Tyler was our CFO. He managed all the business development. Why?
And your cousin Derek? What's his role?
Derek's our COO, Chief Operating Officer. He oversees production, logistics, personnel. Connor frowned. You think Derek is involved?
I think everyone who had access to your company is a person of interest. Raymond made notes. I need a list of everyone who could have accessed your computer, your security footage, your bank accounts.
Connor pulled up a file on his phone, started listing names. When he reached Derek Blake, he hesitated. Derek and I, we've had our differences. He wanted to accept Meridian's offer, said we'd be fools to turn down that kind of money. We argued about it pretty intensely. Connor's voice went quiet. He's family, though. We grew up together. I gave him a job when no one else would hire him. He wouldn't. Raymond had seen that look before. The desperate hope that family meant something, that blood was thicker than greed.
I need everything you have on Derek. Employment records, communications, financial statements.
As Connor gathered files, Raymond's phone buzzed. A text from Sophia. Dad, you need to see this. Coming to you now. 20 minutes later, Sophia Torres burst through the office door. At 32, she'd inherited her father's sharp mind and stubborn determination, channeling it into digital forensics after watching the system destroy him. Now she worked freelance, helping defense attorneys and activists uncover electronic evidence. She didn't waste time on greetings. The money trail from Whitmore's payoff goes through 3 shell companies before hitting an LLC registered in Delaware. That LLC has 4 silent partners. She pulled out her laptop, displaying a corporate structure chart. Titan Construction, Global Steel Alliance, Weyerhaeuser Lumber, and Meridian Pharmaceuticals. Raymond felt something cold settle in his stomach. They're working together. It's called the American Infrastructure Preservation Coalition. Sounds patriotic, right? But look at what they actually do. Sophia pulled up internal documents, emails, meeting minutes. They identify emerging technologies that threaten traditional construction materials. Then they either buy them out or bury them. How did you get these documents? Sophia smiled grimly. Same way you taught me, Dad. People forget that janitors, IT workers, and administrative assistants see everything. I have friends in low places. Connor stared at the screen, his face going pale. They've done this before. Look at this list. 7 companies in the last decade, all working on sustainable building materials, all either acquired for pennies or destroyed by legal challenges and patent disputes. Raymond scanned the list, recognition dawning. Some of these companies, their founders ended up facing criminal charges. All dropped after the companies folded and the technology disappeared, Sophia confirmed. It's a pattern. Create a crisis, force a sale, bury the innovation. But murder? Connor's voice cracked. Tyler is dead because of this? Raymond and Sophia exchanged a look. Connor, Raymond said gently, when exactly did they find Tyler's body? They didn't. They found his blood, his wallet, his phone, all in the Chicago River. Forensics said the amount of blood indicates he couldn't have survived. Connor's hands trembled. They ruled it a homicide, even without a body. Sophia's fingers flew across her keyboard. Dad, what if he's not dead? Raymond finished. What if Tyler Rothman is the one who betrayed Connor, faked his own death, and framed him for murder? The silence that followed was broken only by the hum of Sophia's laptop and Connor's ragged breathing. No, Connor finally said. Tyler wouldn't. We've been friends for 15 years. He believed in this technology as much as I did. For $20 billion? Raymond's voice was gentle but firm. Connor, you need to prepare yourself for the possibility that the person you trusted most was the one who destroyed you. Connor sank into his chair, his face in his hands. Outside, Chicago's skyline glittered in the morning sun. Towers built with the very materials his invention would make obsolete. Somewhere in that city, powerful people were watching, waiting to see if Raymond Torres would be smart enough to walk away. But Raymond was done walking away. Sophia, I need you to find Tyler Rothman. If he's alive, there'll be a trail. Financial, digital, something. Already on it. Raymond turned to Connor. And I need you to trust me.
Because what we're about to do is going to get dangerous. These people destroyed my career 25 years ago for a case involving migrant workers. Imagine what they'll do to protect a $3 trillion industry.
Connor looked up, and despite the fear in his eyes, Raymond saw something else. Determination.
My technology could change everything. Clean cities, sustainable growth, an end to extractive construction. If they bury it, millions of people lose. Connor straightened his shoulders. Tell me what you need me to do.
Raymond allowed himself a small smile. First, we're going to court tomorrow with a motion that'll shake this case to its foundation. And then we're going to prove that the biggest conspiracy in American corporate history is trying to frame you for a murder that never happened. Outside Connor's office, in a black sedan parked 3 blocks away, 2 men watched the building through telephoto lenses. One of them dialed a number.
Torres is in deep. Should we move?
The voice on the other end was calm, emotionless. Not yet. Let him think he's winning. Then we take everything.
Raymond's hands trembled as he stared at the corporate documents spread across his kitchen table. It was 2 in the morning, and his small apartment in Pilsen felt suffocating, despite the October chill seeping through the old windows. Sophia had left an hour ago, but the evidence she'd compiled remained, glowing accusingly in the lamplight. Meridian Pharmaceuticals. The name triggered memories he'd spent 25 years trying to bury. Faces of the workers he'd represented. Maria Gonzalez, holding her sick daughter. Roberto Chen, coughing blood into a handkerchief. 15 immigrant janitors and warehouse workers who'd been exposed to experimental compounds without their knowledge or consent. Raymond had built an airtight case, medical records, internal memos, testimony from a whistleblower scientist. Then, overnight, everything fell apart. Evidence vanished from the courthouse. His key witness recanted, then died in a suspicious car accident. Documents in his own office were discovered to be forgeries he swore he'd never seen before.
The Illinois Bar Association accused him of fabricating evidence and bribing witnesses. The same crimes Meridian had actually committed projected onto him like a mirror. He'd fought for 6 years to clear his name, living in poverty, working night shifts, watching his marriage collapse under the weight of his obsession. When he was finally reinstated, no firm would touch him. The courthouse maintenance office was the only place that would hire a disgraced attorney with a gap in his resume the size of a canyon.
Now, 25 years later, the same company was at the center of another conspiracy, and Raymond understood with sickening clarity that his case and Connor's were connected by more than coincidence. He reached for his phone, dialing a number he hadn't called in a decade. "Raymond?" The voice was hoarse, elderly, but still sharp. "Do you have any idea what time it is?"
I know, Judge Harris. I'm sorry, but I need to see you. Today. It's urgent.
Nathaniel Harris had been Raymond's mentor before becoming a circuit court judge. He'd also been one of the few people who'd believed Raymond's innocence when the Bar Association came after him. Now retired and living on Chicago's South Side, he was one of the last people alive who remembered the Meridian case.
Come by at 8, Harris said. And Raymond, be careful. If Meridian is involved again, you're playing with fire.
At dawn, Raymond drove to Harris's modest bungalow in Bronzeville. The old judge answered the door in a cardigan and slippers, but his eyes were alert, worried. "Tell me," Harris said, pouring coffee in his cluttered study. Raymond laid out everything. Connor's case, the construction cartel, the web of shell companies, and at the center of it all, Meridian Pharmaceuticals. Harris listened in silence, his dark, weathered face growing more troubled with each detail. When Raymond finished, the old judge walked to a filing cabinet and extracted a worn folder. "I kept this," Harris said quietly. "Against my better judgment, but I kept it." Inside were photocopies of documents from Raymond's original case. Corporate structures, shell companies, offshore accounts. And there, on a diagram Harris had drawn by hand, was a name Raymond recognized from Sophia's research. The American Infrastructure Preservation Coalition. 25 years ago, they called it the American Medical Innovation Partnership, Harris explained. Different name, same structure. Meridian at the center, partnered with other corporations to eliminate threats to their market dominance. Raymond's breath caught. They've been doing this for decades.
Longer. I found references going back to the 1970s. Different industries, different targets, but the same pattern. Identify a threat, isolate the innovator, destroy them legally or financially, then absorb or bury the technology. Harris's hands shook slightly as he poured more coffee. Your immigrant workers case threatened to expose their human drug trials. If that went public, Meridian would have faced criminal charges and billions in liability.
So they destroyed me instead.
They destroyed you to protect themselves. And now they're doing it again. Harris met Raymond's eyes. But this time, you know what you're facing. That makes you dangerous.
Raymond thought about Connor, sitting alone in protective custody, about Tyler Rothman, potentially alive and hiding somewhere, about the technology that could change the world, buried because it threatened the wrong prophets.
Judge, I need names. Everyone who was involved in my case who might still be around.
Harris pulled out a list he'd apparently prepared in the hours since Raymond's call. Most are dead or retired, but there's one person you need to talk to. Dr. Patricia Vance. She was the whistleblower scientist who recanted her testimony.
She accused me of bribing her.
Because they threatened her daughter. Patricia's girl was 8 years old then, had a rare heart condition. Meridian's lawyers told Patricia they'd make sure her daughter never got the transplant she needed if she didn't recant. Harris's voice was heavy with old grief. The girl died 6 months later, still on the waiting list.
Raymond closed his eyes, feeling the weight of all those destroyed lives. Where is Dr. Vance now?
Teaching at Northwestern, biomedical engineering. She's published papers over the years that I think were meant as apologies, research exposing corporate malfeasance in drug trials. I think she's been trying to atone.
By noon, Raymond was sitting across from Dr. Patricia Vance in her office at Northwestern University. She was in her 60s now, gray-haired and thin, with eyes that carried the burden of decades of guilt.
I wondered when you'd find me, she said softly when Raymond explained why he'd come. I've followed your career, or lack of one. What I did to you?
They forced your hand, Raymond interrupted. I understand that now, but I need your help. Patricia's laugh was bitter. What could I possibly do? I'm a coward who let an innocent man be destroyed to save my daughter, and she died anyway.
You can tell the truth about what Meridian did then and what they're doing now. Raymond showed her the evidence Sophia had compiled. They're using the same playbook. Different target, different industry, but the same conspiracy. And this time, I'm not going to let them win.
Patricia studied the documents, her expression shifting from guilt to recognition to something harder, anger. Connor Blake, she murmured. I read about his case. Bioengineered construction materials. She looked up at Raymond. Do you know what Meridian's biotech division has been working on for the past 5 years?
The same thing? Unsuccessfully. They've burned through $500 million trying to crack the stability problem. Blake solved it. Patricia pulled up files on her computer. I still have friends inside Meridian. They've been in a panic since Blake's technology was announced. If his patents go through and his product scales, Meridian's entire biotech investment becomes worthless.
So they're framing him for murder to seize his company and bury his research.
Patricia nodded slowly. I can't prove it directly, but I can testify about the pattern, about what they did to your case, the methods they used. It's the same corporate DNA.
Raymond felt something shift in his chest. Hope. Dangerous and fragile. They'll come after you again. I don't have a daughter to threaten anymore, and I'm tired of being afraid. Patricia's jaw set with determination. When do you need me to testify? As Raymond left Northwestern's campus, his phone buzzed with a text from Sophia. Dad, you need to see this now. It's about Derek Blake.
He called her immediately. What did you find?
Derek's been communicating with someone at Meridian for 8 months. Encrypted emails, burner phones, the whole spy movie setup. But he got sloppy last week. I found a wire transfer. Derek received $3 million the day before Tyler Rothman disappeared. Raymond's pulse quickened. Can you prove Derek was involved in Tyler's disappearance?
Better. I can prove Derek accessed Connor's computer the night of the murder. He used Connor's credentials to transfer that $40 million and to authenticate the security footage showing Connor's car at Navy Pier. Sophia's voice was tight with excitement. Dad, Derek isn't just cooperating with the conspiracy. He's running point. He's the one who framed his own cousin.
Raymond sat in his car, pieces falling into place. The betrayal wasn't just corporate. It was family. Derek Blake had sold out his own blood for money and resentment.
But there was something else, something that made Raymond's stomach turn cold.
Sophia, if Derek framed Connor for murder, and if Tyler Rothman is alive?
Then Derek knows where Tyler is, Sophia finished. And if we find Tyler, we can prove Connor's innocence. Raymond started his car, mind racing. Stories like this are why some truths stay buried for decades, he thought, until someone finally connects the dots that powerful people spent millions to keep separated. If you want to understand how deep conspiracies really go, you'll want to stay subscribed. Tomorrow's evidence will show you just how far the power...
Sophia, I need you to trace Derek's movements. If he's been in contact with Tyler, there'll be a pattern. Travel records, financial transactions, something.
Already on it. Dad? Her voice softened. Be careful. These people destroyed you once. They won't hesitate to do it again. Raymond thought about Patricia Vance, about Judge Harris, about all the lives Meridian had crushed over decades, about Connor Blake sitting in a cell for a murder he didn't commit. They can try, he said quietly. But this time, I know what I'm fighting. The emergency hearing took place in Judge Brennan's chambers rather than open court, a small mercy that did nothing to ease the tension crackling through the room. Raymond sat beside Connor, acutely aware of Vincent Kellerman's smug expression across the table. But it was the third person present who made Raymond's instincts scream warnings.
Derek Blake had requested to attend as a concerned family member and corporate officer with relevant information.
He looked like a softer version of Connor. Same height, similar features, but where Connor carried himself with the unconscious confidence of someone who'd built an empire, Derek radiated something else. Resentment, poorly masked behind a facade of concern. Your Honor, Raymond began, I've requested this hearing to present evidence of prosecutorial misconduct and third-party interference in this case. Judge Brennan's expression was skeptical. This is highly irregular, Mr. Torres. Mr. Kellerman has filed a motion to dismiss your claims as frivolous. Then let me present my evidence. Raymond nodded to Sophia, who'd been granted temporary access as a technical consultant. She connected her laptop to the chamber's display screen.
This is a forensic analysis of the electronic evidence against Mr. Blake, Sophia explained, her voice steady and professional. The prosecution claims Connor Blake transferred $40 million from company accounts on the night of October 15th. However, the metadata shows these transactions were initiated from an IP address that doesn't match any of Connor's devices.
Kellerman leaned forward. Your Honor, we've already established that Mr. Blake could have used a burner device. The IP address matches a device registered to Derek Blake, Sophia interrupted, turning to look directly at Derek, Connor's cousin and COO of EcoConstruct Industries. The room went silent. Derek's face remained carefully neutral, but Raymond saw the muscle twitch in his jaw. This is absurd, Derek said smoothly. I had authorization to access company accounts as COO. If there's an IP address match, it's because I was checking our security protocols that evening.
At 1:47 in the morning? Sophia pulled up another screen. And were you also checking security protocols when you accessed Connor's personal computer using his credentials? Or when you authenticated the traffic camera footage showing Connor's car at Navy Pier, footage that was uploaded from your device before it was submitted to police?
Derek's composure cracked slightly. I don't know what kind of fabricated evidence. It's not fabricated. Raymond stood, placing a document in front of Judge Brennan. This is a sworn affidavit from Dr. Patricia Vance, a biomedical engineer and former Meridian pharmaceutical scientist. She details the company's pattern of corporate espionage, evidence manipulation, and conspiracy to eliminate competitive threats day before Tyler Rothman disappeared. Connor turned to stare at his cousin, his face draining of color. Derek? Derek's careful mask shattered. You don't understand. You never understood. His voice rose, years of bitterness spilling out. Everything handed to you, the talent, the opportunities, the spotlight. I worked just as hard, but it was always Connor's company, Connor's vision, Connor's breakthrough.
So you framed me for murder? Connor's voice was barely a whisper.
I gave you a chance, Derek shot back. When Meridian offered $20 billion, I begged you to take it. We could have been set for life, both of us. But you had to be the hero, had to change the world. He laughed bitterly. The world doesn't want to change, Connor. The world wants profit and stability. I just chose the winning side. Judge Brennan's expression had shifted from skepticism to shock. Mr. Blake, I strongly advise you to stop talking.
Why? Derek's eyes blazed. It's over anyway. You want the truth? Fine. Tyler came to me 6 months ago. He was tired of living in Connor's shadow, too. Tired of waiting for payoff that might never come. Meridian offered us both a way out. Tyler fakes his death, Connor takes the fall, and the company gets absorbed at bankruptcy prices. Clean, simple, profitable.
Connor lunged across the table, but Raymond and a bailiff caught him. Tyler's alive? You son of a...
He's living in a villa in Grand Cayman, drinking mojitos on your dime, Derek said, his voice cold now. And he'll stay dead as long as everyone keeps playing their parts.
Kellerman had gone pale, clearly realizing his entire case was built on manufactured evidence. Your Honor, I had no knowledge.
Save it, Mr. Kellerman. Judge Brennan's voice could have cut glass. She turned to Derek. Mr. Blake, you are under arrest for conspiracy, fraud, and obstruction of justice. Bailiff.
As the bailiff moved toward Derek, he smiled, a strange, unsettling expression. You think this ends with me? I'm a footnote. Meridian has attorneys who will bury this before it reaches trial. They have judges, prosecutors, politicians. You're fighting an empire with a janitor and some circumstantial evidence.
Raymond met Derek's eyes steadily. I've fought empires before. They bleed like everyone else.
After Derek was taken into custody and Kellerman excused himself to consult with his office, Judge Brennan looked at Raymond with something approaching respect. Mr. Torres, I owe you an apology. I made assumptions about your capabilities based on your current employment and your appearance. The pause before appearance spoke volumes. That was wrong. Thank you, Your Honor. However, she continued, this case has become significantly more complex. I'm recusing myself and requesting assignment to a judge without any potential conflicts. In the meantime, all charges against Connor Blake are suspended pending further investigation. Connor was released from custody that evening. As he and Raymond stood outside the courthouse in the October darkness, Connor seemed unable to process what had happened. Tyler's alive, he said for the third time. My best friend. 15 years and he just sold me out. Raymond thought about betrayal, about the people who destroyed his own life for profit. Money changes people, or maybe it just reveals who they always were. Derek was family. I gave him everything. Connor's voice broke. How do you forgive something like this? Raymond didn't answer immediately. He thought about his own losses, the years stolen, the career destroyed, about whether forgiveness was even possible when the wounds ran so deep. Could you forgive a family member who tried to frame you for murder? Comment number 1 if you believe family loyalty has limits, or number 2 if you think blood should mean unconditional forgiveness. Because what Raymond and Connor were about to discover was that betrayal was just the beginning. The real conspiracy went far deeper than one vengeful cousin. You don't have to decide now, Raymond finally said. First, we focus on surviving. Because Derek was right about one thing. Meridian won't give up just because we exposed one part of their plan. As if summoning them by speaking their name, Raymond's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Clever work today, but you should know, Derek and Tyler were just pawns. The real game starts now. Drop the case or we'll destroy everyone you love, starting with Sophia. Raymond's blood ran cold. He showed the text to Connor, who paled. They're threatening your daughter? They threatened Patricia Vance's daughter 25 years ago. Intimidation is their standard playbook. But Raymond's hands shook as he dialed Sophia's number. It rang once, twice, 5 times. Voicemail. He tried again. Nothing. Sophia's smart. She knows to be careful, Connor said, but his voice lacked conviction.
Raymond was already running to his car, Connor following. As they drove through Chicago's streets toward Sophia's apartment in Wicker Park, Raymond's mind raced through possibilities, each worse than the last.
They arrived to find Sophia's building dark, quiet. Raymond took the stairs 2 at a time, Connor behind him. Sophia's door was closed but unlocked. Never a good sign. Sophia, Raymond pushed inside, hand fumbling for the light switch. The apartment was in chaos. Furniture overturned, laptop gone, papers scattered everywhere. But no Sophia. On the kitchen table, held down by a coffee mug, was a note in printed letters. You have 24 hours to withdraw from the Blake case and destroy all evidence, or your daughter learns what happens to people who threaten trillion-dollar industries. We'll be in touch with proof of life. Maybe. Connor pulled out his phone. I'm calling the police. No. Raymond's voice was flat, dead. Derek was right. They own police, judges, prosecutors. We call the cops. Sophia disappears permanently. Then what do we do? Raymond stared at the note, feeling 25 years of buried rage finally surface. They'd taken his career, his reputation, his marriage, the best years of his life, and now they'd taken his daughter. We do what they don't expect, Raymond said quietly. We go to war. Judge Brennan's recusal should have been a victory, but the replacement judge made Raymond's instincts scream warning signals from the moment he walked into the courtroom. Judge Warren Kozlov was 53, impeccably dressed, with steel-gray hair and the kind of measured charm that came from years of knowing exactly how powerful he was. His reputation was spotless. Harvard Law, 15 years on the bench, respected by prosecutors and defense attorneys alike. Which was precisely what worried Raymond. Mr. Torres, Kozlov said during their first chambers conference, his smile warm and his eyes cold. I've reviewed the case files. Quite a remarkable turn of events. Derek Blake's arrest certainly changes the complexion of the prosecution. Yes, Your Honor. Given the evidence of conspiracy and manufactured evidence, we're moving for immediate dismissal of all charges against Connor Blake. Kozlov's smile never wavered. I understand your position. However, the fact that Derek Blake may have been involved doesn't necessarily exonerate your client. We still have the matter of $40 million in missing funds, forensic evidence, and a missing person presumed dead. Raymond felt Connor tense beside him. Your Honor, we've established that Derek accessed... You've established that Derek had access to company accounts, yes. But proving he acted alone, or that Mr. Blake had no knowledge of these activities, is another matter entirely. Kozlov leaned back in his chair. I'm inclined to proceed with a modified trial focused on Mr. Blake's potential involvement in the financial crimes, separate from the murder charges. Vincent Kellerman, who'd been notably quiet since Derek's arrest, suddenly spoke up. Your Honor, the prosecution would support that approach. We believe there's sufficient evidence of financial impropriety, regardless of the murder question. Raymond's mind raced. They were pivoting, adapting the attack. If they couldn't convict Connor of murder, they'd destroy him financially and still seize EcoConstruct. Your Honor, I'd like time to review this new direction and prepare an appropriate response. Of course. We'll reconvene in 3 days. Kozlov's smile remained fixed. Oh, and Mr. Torres, I heard about the unfortunate incident involving your daughter. I do hope she turns up safe. Chicago can be so dangerous for young women working alone at night. The comment was carefully phrased, technically appropriate, but the implication was clear. We have Sophia. Behave, or you'll never see her again. Raymond left the courthouse with Connor, both men silent until they reached Raymond's car. He's with them, Connor said flatly. Yes. So what do we do? Every judge they assign will be compromised. Every prosecutor. The entire system is rigged. Raymond pulled out his phone, scrolling through the messages he'd been receiving for the past 18 hours. Proof of life photos of Sophia, bound but unharmed. Deadline reminders. Threats detailed enough to be credible. We stopped playing by their rules, Raymond said. He dialed a number he'd found in Judge Harris's old files. It rang twice before a woman answered.
Channel 7 News, this is Keisha Robinson.
Ms. Robinson, my name is Raymond Torres. I'm an attorney representing Connor Blake, and I have evidence of a conspiracy involving Meridian Pharmaceuticals, multiple federal judges, and a coordinated effort to suppress revolutionary technology. Are you interested in a story that could bring down one of America's largest corporations?
There was a pause. Mr. Torres, do you know how many conspiracy theories I hear every week? I have documents, testimony from a former Meridian scientist, bank records showing payments to judges and prosecutors, and evidence that my daughter was kidnapped by corporate contractors to force me to drop the case. Raymond's voice was steady, cold. 25 years ago, they destroyed my legal career using the same tactics. This time, I'm not staying silent.
Another pause. Longer. Where are you right now?
I'd rather not say over the phone.
Smart. There's a coffee shop in Logan Square, Lula Cafe. Meet me there in an hour. Come alone and bring everything you have.
Raymond hung up and turned to Connor. I need you to stay safe. Go to a hotel. Pay cash. Don't use your phone.
What about Sophia? I'm getting her back, but not by surrendering. Raymond's jaw was set. I'm going to do what I should have done 25 years ago. I'm going public with everything. They split up, Connor disappearing into the city while Raymond drove to meet Keisha Robinson. He arrived early, scanning the coffee shop for threats. Nothing obvious, but his instincts were screaming. Keisha Robinson was younger than he'd expected, maybe 35, with dark skin, natural hair, and eyes that missed nothing. She sat in a corner booth, laptop open, recording device ready.
You have 15 minutes to convince me this isn't a waste of my time, she said as Raymond sat down.
He opened his case file and started talking.
40 minutes later, Keisha sat back, her expression transformed from skepticism to shock to cold professional fury. This is Pulitzer level, she said quietly. If even half of it's true, it's the biggest corporate corruption story in a decade.
It's all true, and they'll come after you for reporting it. Let them try. Keisha's smile was predatory.
I've been waiting my entire career for a story like this. When can you get me on camera with the evidence?
Tonight, but we need to move fast. They're holding my daughter.
Keisha's expression hardened. Then we don't have time for careful vetting. We go live, tonight, streaming on our website and social media. Once it's public, they can't put the genie back in the bottle.
Raymond felt a weight lifting. Finally, after 25 years, he was fighting back on his terms.
But as he left the coffee shop, his phone buzzed with a new message. This one contained a video.
Sophia bound to a chair in what looked like a warehouse, a man's voice off camera. You have 6 hours to withdraw from the Blake case and kill the news story. We know about the reporter. We know about your plan. If that story airs, your daughter dies. This is your final warning. The video ended with Sophia looking directly at the camera, her eyes defiant despite the fear Raymond could see in them. She mouthed 3 words. Don't you dare. Raymond stood on the Chicago sidewalk, people streaming past him, the city indifferent to his crisis. Every instinct screamed at him to withdraw, to save Sophia, to surrender. But he thought about the immigrant workers from 25 years ago, about Connor's revolutionary technology that could change the world, about decades of corporate conspiracies crushing anyone who threatened profit margins, about Sophia herself, who dedicated her career to exposing corruption because she'd watched it destroy her father. She'd never forgive him for backing down, and he'd never forgive himself. He called Keisha Robinson. The story airs tonight, everything we have, and I need you to add something. Evidence of kidnapping and corporate terrorism. Are you sure? If they're threatening your daughter... I'm sure. My daughter would rather die than let them win. So would I. As Raymond drove toward the television station, his phone rang. Unknown number.
Mr. Torres, this is Agent Lisa Reeves, FBI. We've been monitoring the Blake case for several weeks as part of a larger investigation into Meridian Pharmaceuticals. I understand your daughter has been taken.
Raymond's hands tightened on the wheel. How do you know that?
Because we've had Derek Blake under surveillance since his arrest.
He made a call 3 hours ago that we traced to a warehouse in Gary, Indiana. We have a tactical team preparing to move in, but we need your cooperation.
Why should I trust you? For all I know, you're working for Meridian too.
Fair question. Here's why. Meridian destroyed my sister's life 8 years ago. She was a researcher who tried to expose falsified drug trial data. They buried her career, and she committed suicide 2 years later. Agent Reeves's voice was tight with controlled emotion. I've been waiting for a case solid enough to take them down. You've built that case. Let me help you finish it.
Raymond made a decision. What do you need?
Keep them focused on you. The news story, the publicity, it's perfect. While they're scrambling to contain the PR damage, we'll extract your daughter and arrest everyone involved in her kidnapping. Then we roll them up the chain until we reach the executives who ordered this.
And if something goes wrong?
Then you'll have exposed the conspiracy publicly, and even Meridian can't bury a kidnapping that's been broadcast on national news. Agent Reeves paused. Mr. Torres, I can't promise your daughter will be safe, but I can promise that if anything happens to her, everyone responsible will face federal charges.
It wasn't enough, but it was something.
Do it, Raymond said.
That night at 9 p.m., Keisha Robinson's story went live on Channel 7's website and streaming platforms. The headline read, "Corporate Conspiracy: How Pharmaceutical Giant Orchestrated Murder Frame-Up to Steal Revolutionary Technology."
Raymond sat in the studio, live on camera, walking through the evidence piece by piece. Patricia Vance appeared via remote video, detailing Meridian's tactics from 25 years ago. Documents flashed on screen, bank transfers, corporate structures, Derek Blake's confession.
And then the kidnapping video. Sophia's face, the threats, everything.
This is what happens, Raymond said, looking directly into the camera. When profit matters more than people. When corporations become so powerful that human lives are just obstacles to be removed. They destroyed my career 25 years ago, and now they've taken my daughter. But I'm done being silent. America needs to see what these people really are.
The story exploded across social media within minutes. Twitter erupted. Reddit threads multiplied. Within an hour, #MeridianConspiracy was trending nationally.
And in a warehouse in Gary, Indiana, FBI tactical teams moved in.
Raymond's phone rang at 10:47 p.m. Agent Reeves.
We have your daughter. She's safe. Minor dehydration, some bruises, but she's okay.
Raymond's legs gave out. He sat down hard on the studio floor, phone pressed to his ear, unable to speak.
Mr. Torres, did you hear me? Sophia is safe.
Thank you, he whispered. God, thank you.
We arrested 6 people at the scene, including 2 men we've linked to previous Meridian operations. They're talking already, trying to cut deals. This is going to go high up the chain.
But as Raymond drove to the hospital where Sophia was being examined, another call came through. Connor.
Raymond, turn on the news. Any gel.
Raymond pulled over and opened a news app on his phone. The breaking news banner made his stomach drop.
Judge Warren Kozlov found dead in apparent suicide. Note references Blake case.
The story detailed how Kozlov had been found in his home office with a self-inflicted gunshot wound and a note confessing to accepting bribes from corporate interests to influence multiple cases over the past decade.
It's too convenient, Connor said. They killed him to tie up loose ends. Raymond knew Connor was right. Kozlov hadn't killed himself. He'd been eliminated before he could talk. But his death and confession had done something important. It had validated everything Raymond had been saying.
By morning, the story had gone national. Congressional investigations were announced. The Justice Department issued a statement about ongoing criminal probes. Meridian's stock had dropped 30%. And Raymond's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Media requests, other victims of corporate conspiracies reaching out, attorneys offering to help. But all he cared about was the hospital room where Sophia sat up in bed, bruised but alive, giving her statement to FBI agents. When she saw Raymond in the doorway, her composure finally cracked.
Dad?
He was across the room in seconds, holding her while she cried into his shoulder. "I'm sorry," he said. "I'm so sorry they took you because of me." "Don't," she said fiercely. "Don't apologize for doing the right thing. They took me because they're terrified of you, because you're finally beating them."
But Raymond knew the war was far from over. Derek was in custody, but Tyler Rothman was still missing. Meridian's executives hadn't been charged yet, and somewhere in the shadows, the people who'd orchestrated this conspiracy were regrouping, planning their next move. As he sat beside Sophia's hospital bed, watching dawn break over Chicago, Raymond's phone buzzed one more time.
A text from another unknown number. Impressive, but you've only scratched the surface. Tyler Rothman isn't hiding in the Caymans. He's in Chicago. And if you want to prove Connor's innocence completely, you'll need to find him before we do. The hunt begins now.
The tip came through in an encrypted message at 3 a.m., 2 days after Sophia's rescue. Raymond was still at her apartment, sleeping on her couch despite her insistence she was fine. His phone vibrated with a notification from an app he downloaded at Agent Reeves's instruction, a secure communication channel the FBI used for witness protection contacts.
Tyler Rothman spotted at Lincoln Park Marina. Boat registered to Offshore LLC linked to Meridian. He's planning to run. You have maybe 6 hours. Raymond was dressed and out the door in 4 minutes, calling Connor on the way. Are you sure it's him? Connor's voice was thick with sleep and something else. Pain. The betrayal still fresh.
FBI seems confident. They're setting up surveillance, but they want us there for positive ID. Raymond navigated empty Chicago streets, the city quiet in the pre-dawn darkness. Connor, you don't have to come. Seeing him might...
I need to, Connor's voice hardened. I need to look him in the eye and ask him why. They met Agent Reeves and her team in a parking lot 3 blocks from the marina. The agent looked exhausted. The Meridian investigation had consumed her department for 72 hours straight, but her eyes were sharp, focused. We've had eyes on the boat for an hour, she briefed them quietly. One male matching Rothman's description went aboard at 2:47 a.m. He's loaded supplies like he's preparing for a long journey. We're ready to move in, but if you can get him talking first, a confession would strengthen our case considerably. You want us to confront him? Connor looked uncertain. I want you wired up and walking down that dock while we cover you. Agent Reeves held up 2 small devices, cameras and audio. If he admits to faking his death, conspiring to frame you, anything, we've got him on federal charges that Meridian can't make disappear. Raymond studied the marina through binoculars. The boat was a sleek 40-footer, expensive but not flashy, perfect for someone trying to disappear quietly. A figure moved in the cabin, visible through the windows.
What if he runs? Raymond asked. Or what if he's armed?
We have the marina surrounded, and if he pulls a weapon, we move immediately. Agent Reeves's expression was grim, but honestly, men like Rothman don't usually have the courage for violence. They pay other people for that. 10 minutes later, Raymond and Connor walked down the dock, their footsteps echoing on the wooden planks. Dawn was just starting to break, painting the sky in shades of gray and pink. The water lapped softly against the boats. Connor's breathing was shallow, rapid. Raymond could feel the younger man's tension radiating like heat. Stay calm, Raymond murmured. Let him talk. Men like Tyler love to explain how clever they've been. They reached the boat. Connor stepped aboard first, Raymond following. Through the cabin windows, they could see Tyler Rothman clearly now, alive, tanned, looking healthier than he had any right to be. Connor didn't knock. He opened the cabin door and stepped inside. Tyler spun around, dropping the navigation chart he'd been studying. For a moment, he simply stared, his face cycling through shock, fear, and finally something like resignation. Connor, he said quietly, I wondered if you'd figure it out. You're alive, Connor's voice shook. You're alive, and you let them charge me with killing you. Tyler's jaw tightened. It wasn't supposed to go this far. The plan was simple. I disappear, you get questioned and released, the company falls apart, and Meridian scoops it up at bankruptcy prices. Nobody was supposed to get hurt. I've been in jail for 3 months. Connor's control was slipping. Facing life in prison for murdering my best friend. Derek said he could control it, said he had prosecutors and judges lined up, that you'd be fine. Tyler's voice took on a defensive edge. How was I supposed to know he'd go off script and actually try to convict you? Raymond stepped forward. Mr. Rothman, I'm Raymond Torres, Connor's attorney. Why don't you explain the whole plan? For the record. Tyler's eyes narrowed. You're recording this.
Yes.
A long pause. Then Tyler laughed bitterly. Doesn't matter anymore. It's all falling apart anyway. Meridian's stock is tanking, Derek's in custody, and my $20 million is locked in accounts I can't access because of federal scrutiny. He sank into a chair. You want the story? Fine. I'll give you the story.
What emerged over the next 30 minutes was a tale of greed, resentment, and moral compromise. Tyler had been approached by Meridian 18 months ago, shortly after EcoConstruct's breakthrough became known in industry circles. The offer was simple: help them acquire the technology, get rich, and escape Connor's shadow. You always got the credit, Tyler said, looking at Connor. Every article, every interview, Connor Blake, visionary genius. I did half the work, but I was always Blake's business partner, never a name anyone remembered. His voice cracked. $20 million to fake my death and disappear. It seemed like a clean break. People's lives aren't clean breaks, Tyler. Raymond's voice was cold. You destroyed an innocent man to soothe your ego and pad your bank account. Connor would have been fine, Tyler shot back. Derek promised me the charges would be dropped once the company was absorbed. It was supposed to be theater, not an actual prosecution. But you didn't care enough to check, Connor said softly. You didn't care enough to make sure I was actually okay. You just took the money and ran. Tyler looked away. I'm not proud of it. Where's the blood? Raymond asked. The DNA evidence the prosecution has? Your blood in Connor's car, the scene by the river. How did you fake that? Meridian has biotech capabilities you wouldn't believe. They synthesized blood samples, planted DNA evidence, manufactured an entire crime scene. Tyler's expression was haunted. When I saw how thorough they were, how much they'd invested in making this look real, that's when I realized I'd made a deal with people who don't leave loose ends. You think they'll kill you, Raymond said. It wasn't a question. I know they will. Once this case is over and the technology is buried, I'm a liability. Tyler pulled out a flask and took a long drink. That's why I'm running. Got a fake passport, new identity, boat that can make it to Mexico. From there, who knows? Agent Reeves's voice crackled in Raymond's earpiece. We have everything we need. Moving in now. Tyler Rothman, Raymond said formally. FBI agents are about to board this vessel. You're under arrest for conspiracy, fraud, and obstruction of justice. I'd advise you not to resist. Tyler's face went pale. You bastard. You set me up. No, Connor said, his voice cold. We gave you a chance to tell the truth. You made your choices, Tyler. Now you get to live with them. Federal agents swarmed the boat within seconds. Tyler didn't resist, just sat with his head in his hands as they read him his rights. As he was led away in handcuffs, he looked back at Connor one last time. I'm sorry, he said. For what it's worth, I really am sorry. Connor didn't respond. He stood on the deck, watching the sunrise over Lake Michigan, his expression unreadable. You okay? Raymond asked quietly. He was my best friend. My brother, practically. Connor's voice was hollow. How do you process someone you loved betraying you that completely? Raymond thought about his own betrayals, the colleagues who'd turned on him 25 years ago, the witnesses who'd perjured themselves to save their own skins. You don't process it, you just survive it. And eventually, you realize their choices say everything about them and nothing about you. You won't believe what Tyler revealed next, because what he told FBI agents in his formal confession would expose a conspiracy reaching far beyond Meridian Pharmaceuticals. The names he named would shake corporate America to its foundations. As they left the marina, Agent Reeves approached with her phone in hand. Tyler's already making a deal. He's offering testimony against Meridian executives, Derek, and half a dozen other corporate officers involved in the conspiracy. But there's something else. She showed them her screen. We found evidence on Tyler's boat, files he'd kept as insurance. Financial records showing Meridian's conspiracy goes back 40 years and involves dozens of suppressed technologies. Raymond's pulse quickened. How many people? Hundreds of victims. Maybe thousands if you count the workers affected by suppressed safety innovations, environmental technologies, medical breakthroughs.
Agent Reeves's expression was grim. Tyler Rothman just handed us the biggest corporate conspiracy case in American history.
Will the charges against Connor be dropped? Raymond asked.
I'll have the paperwork filed by noon. Connor Blake is a free man. She paused. But, Mr. Torres, you need to know, Meridian isn't going to just roll over because we arrested 2 co-conspirators. The people at the top have billions invested in making this disappear, and they've proven they're willing to kill to protect those investments.
Raymond nodded slowly. He'd known this was coming. The real battle wasn't in courtrooms or police interrogation rooms. It was in boardrooms and back channels, where powerful men decided whose lives mattered and whose didn't.
"Let them come," he said quietly. "I've been waiting 25 years for this fight."
Sophia's apartment had been transformed into a war room. 3 laptops, 2 monitors, cables snaking across every surface, and enough coffee cups to supply a small cafe. She'd been home from the hospital for 4 days now, and despite Raymond's concerns about her health, she'd thrown herself into the investigation with fierce determination.
"They made it personal when they grabbed me," she'd said when Raymond suggested she take time to recover. "Now I'm going to return the favor."
Connor sat beside her now, learning her digital forensics techniques with surprising aptitude. Agent Reeves had assigned 2 FBI analysts to assist, and together they'd been mapping the conspiracy's full scope for 72 hours straight.
What they'd uncovered was staggering.
Look at this. Sophia pulled up a network diagram that looked like a spider's web. The American Infrastructure Preservation Coalition is the public face, but behind it are 12 shell companies, 19 offshore accounts, and connections to 47 different corporations across 8 industries.
Raymond studied the diagram, his legal mind working to process the implications. They're not just suppressing construction technology, they're protecting entire market sectors from disruption.
Exactly, Sophia zoomed in on a cluster of connections. Energy, pharmaceuticals, construction, telecommunications, agriculture, automotive, chemical manufacturing, and defense. Every time a breakthrough threatens one of these industries, the coalition moves in. One of the FBI analysts, a young woman named Chen, pointed to a timeline she'd constructed. We've documented 73 separate incidents over the past 40 years. Inventors whose patents were bought and buried, companies that mysteriously collapsed after refusing acquisition offers, researchers who died in convenient accidents.
"How many deaths?" Connor asked, his voice tight.
That we can prove? 17. But there are another 36 cases where the circumstances are suspicious enough to warrant investigation. Raymond felt sick. This wasn't just corporate malfeasance. It was systemic murder masquerading as business strategy.
"What about my case from 25 years ago?" he asked. "The immigrant workers Meridian used for drug trials." Sophia pulled up another file. Maria Gonzalez died of complications from exposure to experimental compounds. Roberto Chen, lung cancer at 42. Of the 15 workers in your case, 11 are dead. The other 4 are dealing with chronic health issues directly traceable to chemical exposure.
Raymond closed his eyes, seeing their faces. Maria's daughter, who must be in her 30s now. Roberto's wife, widowed too young. All those lives destroyed, and he'd been powerless to help them.
"Dad!" Sophia's hand on his shoulder brought him back to the present. "We're going to make this right. All of it."
Agent Reeves arrived with more FBI personnel and boxes of evidence seized from Derek Blake's office. "We found the smoking gun," she said without preamble. "Communications between Meridian's CEO, Titan Construction's board, and 6 sitting federal judges coordinating the suppression of eco-construct technology."
She laid out printed emails, each more damning than the last. Judges discussing which cases to accept. Prosecutors sharing strategy with defense attorneys representing corporate interests. A federal regulator promising to delay environmental approvals for Connor's building materials. "This is enough for RICO charges against the entire coalition," Raymond said, scanning the documents. "Racketeering, conspiracy, obstruction of justice, bribery of federal officials." "It's enough to request a special prosecutor and grand jury investigation," Agent Reeves confirmed. "The Chicago field office is coordinating with Maine Justice. By next week, we'll have indictments for the top tier of conspirators." Connor had gone quiet, staring at the evidence web.
My technology could have been saving lives for the past 3 years. Cleaner cities, sustainable construction, reduced carbon emissions. How many people died from pollution-related illness while these bastards protected their profit margins?
No one answered. The question hung in the air, heavy with implications none of them wanted to quantify. Sophia broke the silence. There's something else you need to see. She pulled up a video file. This is security footage from Meridian Pharmaceuticals' executive parking garage, dated 3 weeks ago. Watch who meets.
The grainy footage showed 2 men talking beside a black Mercedes. Raymond recognized one immediately, Meridian CEO Charles Duvall, a man whose face had been on the cover of Forbes twice in the past year. The other man took Raymond a moment to place.
Then his blood ran cold. That's Judge Kozlov, Connor said, the one who supposedly killed himself. 2 weeks before his suicide, Sophia confirmed. And look what Kozlov hands him. A manila envelope, exchanged for a small package that Kozlov slipped into his jacket. We had the FBI forensics team enhance the audio, Agent Reeves said. She played the file. Kozlov's voice, tinny but clear. This needs to end. Torres is exposing too much. The Blake case should have been a quiet conviction and asset seizure. Duvall's response was cold, emotionless. Judge Kozlov, you've been compensated generously to ensure outcomes favorable to our interests. Do your job, or we'll find someone who will. Is that a threat? It's a reminder that we have extensive documentation of your financial arrangements that would interest federal prosecutors greatly. The video ended, Kozlov looking defeated, climbing into his car. Duvall driving away without a backward glance. Judge Kozlov didn't kill himself, Raymond said flatly. They murdered him when he became a liability. We think so too, Agent Reeves said. We've reopened the death investigation. The suicide note was typed, not handwritten. The angle of the gunshot wound is inconsistent with self-infliction, and we found traces of sedatives in his system that aren't prescribed to him. Connor stood abruptly, pacing the small apartment. How do we beat this? They have judges, prosecutors, unlimited money, and they're willing to kill anyone who threatens them. What chance do we have? Raymond thought about the question. About 25 years of mopping floors and staying invisible. About every time he'd swallowed his pride and accepted condescension, because speaking up meant losing the only job he could get. About Sophia, bound to a chair, defiant even in captivity. We have the truth, he said. And we have something they don't. Nothing left to lose. They took everything from me decades ago. The only thing I have now is my word and my determination to see justice done. They can't threaten that away. Sophia smiled. Plus, we have this. She pulled up another file. I've been coordinating with other victims of the coalition. 73 cases over 40 years? That's 73 potential witnesses. I've reached out to every survivor we could find, every family member of deceased victims. 42 have agreed to testify. Testified about what? Connor asked. Everything. The pattern of suppression, the methods used, the lives destroyed. If we can get them all in front of a grand jury, we can establish the systematic nature of this conspiracy. Sophia's eyes blazed with determination. They can silence one person, maybe even 10, but 42 victims, all telling consistent stories across 4 decades? That's undeniable. Agent Reeves nodded approvingly. I'll coordinate with the special prosecutor. If we can build this into a RICO case with multiple victim witnesses, we're looking at potential life sentences for the top conspirators. Over the next week, the investigation expanded exponentially. More FBI agents were assigned, more documents surfaced, and slowly, inexorably, the full scope of the conspiracy came into focus. The American Infrastructure Preservation Coalition wasn't just a corporate alliance. It was a shadow government protecting entrenched industries from any innovation that threatened their dominance. They had operatives in federal agencies, judges on their payroll, prosecutors who coordinated with defense attorneys, and a network of private investigators and contractors who handled the wet work when legal methods failed. Raymond compiled everything into a comprehensive brief,
600 pages documenting 40 years of corporate conspiracy, complete with witness statements, financial records, and communications proving coordination at the highest levels.
"This is what we present to the grand jury," he told the team. "This is how we destroy them completely."
But the night before the grand jury presentation was scheduled, Raymond received a call that changed everything.
"Mr. Torres?" An unfamiliar voice, male, nervous. "My name is Dr. Gerald Hastings. I'm the chief scientist at Meridian Pharmaceuticals. I have information about the coalition's plans, and you need to hear it tonight."
"How do I know this isn't a trap?" "Because I've watched this company destroy good people for 20 years, and I can't stomach it anymore. Please, meet me at Millennium Park in 1 hour. Come alone, or I can't help you." Raymond knew it could be a setup, but his instincts, honed over decades of fighting impossible battles, told him this was real.
"I'll be there," he said.
Millennium Park at midnight was eerily beautiful, the Cloudgate sculpture reflecting the city lights like a liquid mirror. Raymond walked slowly, scanning for threats, acutely aware that he was exposed and vulnerable. Dr. Hastings emerged from the shadows, a thin man in his 60s, wearing a rumpled coat and carrying a worn backpack. "You came," he said, relief evident in his voice. "What information do you have?" Hastings pulled out a flash drive. Everything. The coalition's complete operational files. Names, dates, methods, offshore accounts, every suppressed technology for the past 40 years, and their contingency plans for when legal approaches fail. Raymond's heart raced. "Why give this to me?" "Because tomorrow they're planning something at the courthouse. I don't know the details, but I overheard executives discussing a permanent solution to the Torres problem. I think they're going to kill you during the grand jury presentation." The words hung in the cold night air. Raymond had known they might try again, but hearing it stated so baldly still sent ice through his veins. "Why warn me? Why betray your employer?" Hastings' expression crumbled. "Because my daughter died from a disease that could have been cured if Meridian hadn't suppressed a breakthrough treatment 15 years ago. They buried it because it would have cannibalized their existing drug profits. My daughter was 8 years old." Raymond thought of Sophia, of how close he'd come to losing her. "I'm sorry." "I'm done being sorry. I want to burn them down." Hastings pressed the flash drive into Raymond's hand. "This is everything you need. Just promise me you'll see it through. Promise me these bastards will finally face justice." Raymond looked at the flash drive, then back at the scientist. "I promise." They parted ways in the darkness. Raymond called Agent Reeves immediately, arranging for federal protection and for FBI forensic analysts to examine the drive's contents. What they found exceeded even Raymond's expectations. Complete financial records, communications proving coordination between the coalition and government officials at the cabinet level, videos of meetings where executives explicitly discussed eliminating threats, including Raymond himself. And most damning of all, a list of 17 deaths the coalition had arranged over the years, including Judge Kozlov and 3 other people connected to Connor's case. "This is it," Agent Reeves said, her voice shaking with barely controlled fury. "This takes down everyone. The executives, the judges, the prosecutors, all of them." But Raymond couldn't shake Dr. Hastings' warning. Tomorrow's grand jury presentation would be the moment when he was most vulnerable, most exposed. And somewhere in Chicago's shadows, people with unlimited resources and no conscience were planning to make sure he never made it to testify. The Dirksen Federal Building's grand jury room was on the 14th floor, accessible only through multiple security checkpoints. Agent Reeves had arranged for additional federal marshals, metal detectors, and background checks on everyone entering the building, but Raymond's hands still trembled slightly as he organized his presentation materials. Connor sat beside him, insisting on being present despite the danger. Sophia was in the gallery, along with Patricia Vance and 15 other victims who would testify about the coalition's pattern of destruction. 5 minutes, Mr. Torres, the grand jury foreman said. Raymond took a breath, centering himself. This was it. The moment that would either expose one of the largest corporate conspiracies in American history or get him killed trying. He stood, walked to the podium, and began. Ladies and gentlemen of the grand jury,
Over the next several hours, you will hear testimony and review evidence documenting a conspiracy spanning 40 years, involving billions of dollars and responsible for the deaths of at least 17 people we can prove, with many more likely. This conspiracy has suppressed life-saving technologies, destroyed innocent lives, and corrupted our judicial system at the highest levels.
For the next 3 hours, Raymond methodically built his case. He showed financial records proving coordination between corporations. He played videos of executives discussing the elimination of threats. He called witness after witness, victims of the coalition's suppression tactics, families of deceased innovators, whistleblowers who'd watched careers destroyed.
Patricia Vance's testimony was particularly powerful. She detailed how Meridian had threatened her daughter's life 25 years ago, then sat back and watched the girl die when she couldn't get a heart transplant. The grand juror's expressions shifted from skepticism to shock to cold anger. Connor testified about his technology, what it could mean for sustainable construction, and how the coalition had systematically tried to steal or bury it. His voice was steady, professional, but Raymond could see the toll this was taking.
By early afternoon, they'd presented enough evidence to indict every member of the coalition's leadership. The grand jury foreman called for a short recess before the final witness testimonies.
Raymond stepped into the hallway, his shorts soaked with sweat despite the building's air conditioning. Agent Reeves approached with 2 marshals.
"We've had a development," she said quietly. "Dr. Hastings was found dead in his home this morning. Apparent suicide."
Raymond's stomach dropped.
"They killed him."
We think so, but it doesn't change anything. The evidence he provided is still valid, and we have it all secured. She paused. There's something else. We've identified 2 men in the building who don't belong here. They passed initial security with credentials that check out superficially, but our facial recognition flagged them as private military contractors with ties to Meridian.
"Where are they now?" "We lost them somewhere between the 8th and 14th floors." Agent Reeves's hand moved to her service weapon. "I'm evacuating the grand jury room. We need to get you out of here."
Before Raymond could respond, the lights went out.
Emergency lighting kicked in after a moment, bathing the hallway in eerie rat. Then the fire alarm began blaring, adding chaos to confusion. "Move!" Agent Reeves shouted, pulling Raymond toward the emergency stairs.
They'd made it perhaps 10 steps when the first shots rang out.
Raymond dove to the floor, his legal training completely useless in the face of actual gunfire. He'd never been shot at before. The sound was deafening, echoing off the marble floors and walls. Agent Reeves returned fire, her weapon barking 3 times in rapid succession. One of the marshals went down, blood spreading across his uniform shirt. The other marshal was pulling Connor to cover behind a marble pillar. Raymond crawled toward them, every instinct screaming at him to run. But Sophia was still in the grand jury room, along with all the other witnesses. He changed direction, scrambling toward the courtroom doors. "Raymond, no!" Connor's shout was barely audible over the alarm. Raymond burst through the doors into chaos. The grand jurors were panicking, some hiding under tables, others trying to exit through a side door. Sophia stood at the center of the room, helping Patricia Vance to her feet.
Dad, get down!
The side door exploded inward. 2 men in tactical gear entered, weapons raised. But these weren't police or federal agents. Their movements were too aggressive, too targeted. They were looking for Raymond. Time seemed to slow. Raymond saw the lead gunman's weapon track toward Connor, who'd followed him into the room. He saw Sophia's face, recognition dawning that her father was in the line of fire. There was no thought, no conscious decision. Raymond launched himself toward Connor just as the gunman fired. The impact spun Raymond around. He felt something punch into his left shoulder, a sensation more like being hit with a baseball bat than the burning pain he'd expected. He and Connor went down together, crashing into a row of chairs. More gunfire. Agent Reeves and other federal agents stormed the room, engaging the gunman in a brief, brutal firefight. One of the attackers went down immediately. The other tried to run, but was tackled by 3 agents. Raymond lay on the floor, his shoulders screaming now, the pain finally catching up with the adrenaline. Connor was underneath him, stunned but unharmed. "You're shot," Connor said, his voice strange and distant. "Raymond, you're bleeding." Sophia was there, pressing her jacket against Raymond's shoulder, her face pale but her hands steady. "Someone call an ambulance. He needs medical now."
Agent Reeves appeared above him, her face grim. "Hang on, Torres. Medics are coming."
Raymond tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come. The courtroom ceiling swam above him, the emergency lights creating strange patterns. He thought about Judge Kozlov, about Dr. Hastings, about all the people who died fighting the coalition. At least he'd gotten the evidence presented. At least the grand jury had heard everything.
At least Sophia was safe.
"Dad, stay with me." Sophia's voice was fierce, commanding. "You don't get to die now. Not after everything. You hear me?" Raymond managed a weak smile, not planning on it. But the darkness was creeping in at the edges of his vision. He heard sirens, shouting, Connor's voice explaining what had happened, Agent Reeves barking orders. The sounds began to fade, like someone was slowly turning down the volume on the world. There was one thing Raymond didn't know as consciousness slipped away. The man who'd pulled the trigger was someone Connor had trusted his entire life. Not Derek, not Tyler, but someone even closer. Someone who'd been feeding information to the coalition from the very beginning. And that person was still in the building, watching from the cameras, making sure the job got finished. The last thing Raymond heard before everything went black was Sophia's voice, strong and determined. "I'm not losing you. Hold on, Dad. Just hold on." Raymond woke 3 days later in Northwestern Memorial Hospital, his shoulder immobilized and Sophia asleep in the chair beside his bed. The pain was manageable, the prognosis good. The bullet had missed everything vital. Agent Reeves visited that afternoon with news that felt like a fever dream. "The grand jury handed down 47 indictments," she said. "Meridian CEO, Titan Construction's board, 3 federal judges, 2 prosecutors, and Derek Blake's entire network. RICO charges for everyone." She paused. "And we identified the shooter's handler, Connor's head of security, Marcus Webb. He'd been feeding intelligence to the coalition for 2 years.
Connor stood in the doorway, his expression hollowed by betrayal. "I trusted Marcus with my life."
"He sold it for $500,000, Agent Reeves said quietly. Over the following weeks, the conspiracy collapsed spectacularly. Meridian's stock went into free fall. Congressional hearings were announced. The Justice Department seized billions in assets. And Connor Blake was fully exonerated, his company restored, his reputation vindicated. He came to Raymond's apartment. Raymond had refused to stay at Connor's estate during recovery, with an offer. Chief legal counsel at EcoConstruct. $4 million annually, full benefits, stock options. Raymond smiled, shaking his head. "I appreciate it, but I'm reopening my practice." "For who?" "Immigrants facing corporate exploitation. Workers without resources to fight back. People the system ignores." Raymond's voice was quiet but firm. "That's why I became a lawyer. Not for money, for justice." Connor nodded slowly, understanding. "Then let me fund it. The Raymond Torres Legal Justice Center. $20 million endowment, annual contributions, legal clinics in underserved communities." This time, Raymond accepted. 6 months later, Raymond walked into the Dirksen Federal Building again, not as a janitor, but as an attorney representing a Honduran janitor whose employer had exposed her to toxic chemicals without protection. The opposing counsel was expensive, connected, confident. Raymond had faced worse. Have you ever won a battle only to realize the real war was just beginning? When you finally had the power to walk away wealthy and comfortable, did you choose instead to stay and fight for people who couldn't fight for themselves? Because true justice isn't about one victory. It's about using that victory to change a system that's broken for everyone who comes after you. Please don't forget to like and subscribe if you like this story. Turn on your notification because tomorrow's story is the one you don't want to miss.